Philip. Nagkakalaan pati ng bagong papuno ng Papa ng Revolusyonaryo. Senado.
About the author. The actual author of the proclamation was Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista, the initiator of the Philippine independence that led to the making of the proclamation was General Emilio Aguinaldo. Who is Emilio Aguinaldo?
I am Emilio Aguinaldo. I was born on March 22, 1869 in Cavite, Cavite. I am second to the youngest of 8 children of our father, Carlos Aguinaldo, and mother, Trinidad Fami. We were a wealthy and influential family, with father Carlos being Gobernadorcillo several times. The Gobernadorcillo is the governor or headman of a village or small town in the Philippines during the Spanish colonial period, which is equivalent to our town mayor today. After my father's death in 1883, I assisted my mother in her family business and worked to help earn the family income. Followed my father's footsteps, and then I was chosen as Kapitan Municipal of Cavite in 1894. Months later, I joined the Katipunan under the name Magdalo, a name that was also given to another branch of Katipunan, Magdiwang, which I set up in our province. When the revolution began in 1896, the Katipunan in Cavite succeeded in driving away the Spaniards from the province. But territorial and logistical problems between our groups forced me to ask for help from Supremo Andres Bonifacio in settling the conflict. Bonifacio's intervention only worsened the situation, and the only solution we saw was to create a revolutionary government. Elections for pamahalaang paghihimagsik were held in Barrio Tejeros in San Francisco de Malabon, which is now General Trias in Cavite. March 22, 1897, I was elected president with Mariano Trias as vice president. Artemio Ricarte as captain general, Emiliano Riego de Dios as director of war, and Andres Bonifacio as director of interior. But the elections were disrupted following a protest over Bonifacio's educational qualification for such a position. Because of humiliation and anger, Bonifacio declared that all matters convened in the Tejeros conventions were null and voided, and then walked out. The Magdalos, however, considered the election binding, and the new government was found. When Bonifacio tried to put up his own government with an armed group, he was arrested and tried for sedition. Found guilty, the Supremo and his brother Procopio were executed on May 10, 1897. Internal dissent caused by Bonifacio's death weakened the Katipunan further. The Spanish troops regained Cavite, and I was forced to retreat in the mountains of Biak na Bato. The Spaniards soon realized that going after the rebels in their mountain hideout was futile. Stalemate ensued, broken only by a proposal, which the rebels agreed. In exchange for an indemnity, amnesty, and colonial reform, I went into exile in Hong Kong with my officers in December 1897. The Spanish-American War in 1898 eventually changed the Philippines. After the Americans won the Battle of Manila Bay in 1898, I returned to the Philippines. With their help, I announced the resumption of revolution against Spain. After winning several victories against Spaniards, I declared the Philippines independent on the June 12th of 1898. After the Spanish defeat in 1898, the US began to send fresh troops to the Philippines in 1899. convened a Congress in Malolos, Bulacan, in which the delegates wrote the Constitution and established the Philippine Republic, with me as the president in January 1899. There erupted again a conflict with the Americans in February 1899. The Philippine-American War eventually ended when I was captured in 1901. I ran for presidency of Philippine Commonwealth, but I lost to Manuel L. Quezon. I was charged for collaboration by the Americans for helping the Japanese during the World War II, but I was later freed in general amnesty. As a private citizen, I devoted my time to the cause of veteran revolutionarios, till my death at the age of 94 on February 6, 1964.
Nakahukit magpakailanman sa aking palad ang iyong pangalan. Malilimutan ba ng ina ang anak na galing sa kanya, sanggol sa kanyang.
Background of the document. The Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence was written and read by Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista in Spanish and translated by Sulpicio Guevara. It was written to use for Declaration of Freedom of Philippines after the war against America and Spain. The declaration was signed by 177 persons. The main reason for having the declaration is to symbolize that the Philippines has the right to be independent and free from Spaniards, and is no longer tied politically with them. Aguinaldo thought that it was necessary to declare the independence of the Philippines. He believed that such move would inspire the people to fight more eagerly against the Spaniards, and at the same time, lead the foreign countries to recognize the independence of the country. Mabini, Aguinaldo's unofficial advisor, objected. He based his objection on the fact that it was more important to recognize the government in such a manner as to convince the foreign powers of the competence and stability of the new government than to proclaim Philippine independence at such an early period. Aguinaldo, however, stood his ground and won. On June 12, 1898, between 4 and 5 in the afternoon, Aguinaldo, in the presence of a huge crowd, proclaimed the independence of the Philippines at Cavite el Viejo, or Kawit. For the first time, the Philippine national flag, made in Hong Kong by Mrs. Marcela Agoncillo, assisted by Lorenza Agoncillo and Delfina Herbrosa, was officially hoisted in the Philippine National March played in public. It was resulted unanimously that this nation, already free and independent as of this day, must use the same flag which up to now is being used, was designed and colored or found described in the attached drawing. The white triangle signifies the distinctive emblem of the famous Society of the Katipunan, which by means of its blood compact inspired the masses to rise in revolution. The three stars signify the three principal islands of this archipelago, Luzon, Mindanao, and Panay, where the revolutionary movement started. The sun represents the gigantic steps made by the son of the country along the path of progress and civilization. The 8 rays signify the 8 provinces: Manila, Cavite, Bulacan, Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, Bataan, Laguna, and Batangas, which declares themselves in a state of war as soon as the first revolt was initiated. Colors of blue, red, and white, commemorating the flag of the United States of America, as a manifestation of our profound gratitude towards this great nation for its disinterested protection, which it lent us and continues lending us. The Philippine Declaration was signed by 177 persons, among them an American Army officer who witnessed the proclamation. The most significant achievement of Aguinaldo's dictatorial government was the proclamation of Philippine independence in Kawit, Cavite on June 12, 1898. The day was declared as a national holiday. Thousands of people from the provinces gathered in Kawit to witness the historic event. The ceremony was solemnly held at the balcony of Emilio Aguinaldo's residence. The military and civil officials of the government were in attendance. The dramatic feature of the ceremony was the formal unfurling of the Filipino flag amidst the cheers of the people. At the same time, the Philippine national anthem was played by the band. And lastly, Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista solemnly read the Act of Declaration of Independence, which he himself wrote. About the text. June 10, 1896. Aguinaldo issued a one-sentence decree appointing Ambrosio Bautista, the Auditor General of War, as a special commissioner to write the Act of Declaration of the Independence. The Act of Declaration of Independence is a 16-page document which contains aspirations of freedom from Spanish rule. It also contains the sacrifices of Filipino people and the revolution resulted from it. It was read in Kawit, Cavite in the afternoon of the celebration of the Declaration of Independence. Content Analysis. This document played a massive role in shaping the Philippines from a former colony to a sovereign nation. The first document, the Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence, which is written by Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista, shows how unsatisfied are the masses to the unjust and tyrannical rule of Spain in the Philippines. It also contains a brief history of the hardships of the Philippines under the Spaniards, and using it as a justification for cutting or seizing their allegiance to the Spanish crown. Additionally, the document granted Emilio Aguinaldo the power to run the government, as stated in the following passage as translated by Sulpicio Guevara.
Kinagagal akong batiin ang bagong pangulo ng pamalang revolusyonaryo. el presidente Emilio Fami Aguinaldo.
Lastly, this document introduced and provided a brief background of our Philippine flag and the Marcha Nacional Filipina, or our Philippine national anthem. In order to analyze the first document, we will be comparing it to the American Declaration of Independence. Both of them provides a brief history about the experience under colonialism and how they fought against oppression. Both also share the same goal of achieving independence and liberty from the colonial rulers. However, unlike the American Declaration of Independence, which did not put emphasis or revere their leader, our Declaration of Independence reveres Aguinaldo as an instrument of God, and upon reading the entire text, there is not even a single time that Andres Bonifacio was mentioned, even though he started the revolution. What is the relevance of this document in modern day? Even history is a history, we should not forget it. First is to remember the sacrifices of our heroes and appreciate sovereignty. This day is not just a regular holiday. It is that day that Filipinos remember the courage and sacrifices by soldiers and heroes who fought for our motherland. Inspired by their strength to fight and dedication to free the country against the colonizers, should be remembered by the generations of today and the years to come. These heroic acts should be appreciated as much as we appreciate the endowment of sovereignty. Second is to show your love for your country. It is not only important to celebrate this holiday, but it is also important not to forget its significance for the Philippines. Many Filipinos offered their talents and skills and put their lives at risk to achieve our independence. Their heroic stories should serve as lessons to learn as citizens of this country. We may have different ways of showing our love for the Philippines, but let us appreciate even the little things that we do to express how much we love our country. This is relevant in modern day as we appreciate and remember the sacrifices of frontliners and essential workers to help our countries in times of need.
Sana'y malawang nakikita ko mga pawis at luha na inalay mo at sa iyong paghihirap dumaloy sa'yo ang pag-asa. Salamat ng dahil sa'yo.
Third is to spread awareness and engrave respect for Filipino culture. More than remembering our hard-earned freedom, may this day be an opportunity to appreciate Filipino heritage, culture, and tradition. Our rich and colorful traditions and culture from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao show that the Filipino character is not only brave and courageous. We, Filipinos, are talented and skillful in many ways. And lastly, to feel the true essence of Independence Day. In this modern day, students and people only remember Independence Day as no classes or holiday. We should not forget the truest meaning, and we should not take it for granted. We should take time to reflect and appreciate the essence of freedom that independence gave us.
Para po sa akin, ang pag-aaral ng The Act of Proclamation ay isang paraan upang maipakalat ang kaalaman tungkol sa historya ng kalayaan o kasarinlan ng Pilipinas, na kung saan ito ay mahalaga bilang isang mamamayang Pilipino dahil ito ang rason kung sino tayo ngayon at ano tayo bilang isang bansa. Mahalaga rin na malaman natin na ang unang kalayaan ng Pilipinas ay naideklara ni Emilio Aguinaldo noong Hunyo 12, 1898 sa Kawit, Cavite, na kung saan ginawa rin na itong ngayon na Aguinaldo Shrine, na hindi lamang isang pang-akit ng mga turista, kundi isang simbolo na upang mas mahalin at pahalagahan natin ang kalayaang tinatamasa natin ngayon. Mas napalawak din ang aking kaalaman at naunawaan kung bakit parte ng ating holiday ang araw ng Hunyo 12 at bakit sa araw na ito ay nagbibigay ng libreng sakay ang MRT o MRT na tren. Ito ay paraan din pala ng pag-alala sa ipinakitang tatag at ginawang sakripisyo ng ating mga ninuno upang maipaglaban ang kalayaan ng ating bansa. Ang kalayaan na tumapos sa mga paghihirap ng mga Pilipino noon sa kamay ng mga mananakop na Amerikano at Espanyol, at ang kalayaan na inasam ng lahat ng mga lumalaban noon para mabuhay na patuloy nating tinatamasa ngayon. Sa pagkalat ng kaalaman na ito, ay mahalaga rin na maikintal sa ating isipan na tumulong upang maprotektahan ng kalayaang ito, dahil naniniwala rin ako na hindi mauulit ang nangyari noon sa nakaraan kung matututo tayo dito. At sa pagkakaroon ng kaalaman tungkol sa historya ng ating kalayaan, mai-a-apply ito sa nangyaring agawan sa West Philippine Sea sa pagitan ng ating bansa at ng bansang China, na kung saan hindi natin dapat hayaan na ipagkait sa atin ng ating teritoryo at ipaglaban hindi lamang ang kalayaan ng ating bansa, kundi pati na rin ang mga nakapaloob o kabilang sa ating bansa.
We Filipinos obtain our freedom and our sovereignty for our country, thanks to the Filipinos who fought for it. Since we already gained it until today, we should take care and cherish it. We should not take our freedom for granted, especially our sovereignty in our country. I know that there are many countries out there are willing to help us to make our country firm and strong. However, marami ding mga bansa na interesado sa ating bansa. Hindi naman masama na makiisa tayo sa kanila, because that is part of globalization, and talaga namang malaking tulong sila sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa. However, we should let them know their limitations. Ganun din tayo. Alam natin na ang salitang utang na loob ay pwedeng gawing sumbat sa atin ng mga bansang tumutulong sa atin. So we should at least be independent in terms of managing our own country. We are Filipinos, and we should be the one who manage our own country. Build our country. Hindi dapat natin ito inaasa sa mga bansa na willing tayong tulungan, because kung nagawa ng mga Filipino dati na tumayo sa sarili nating mga paa, as Filipinos, we can do it again.
Based on what I have read, Emilio Aguinaldo also played a big role in achieving independence for our country, as he was the first Philippine president. It is undeniable that the role he played during the war against the colonizers are truly spectacular. The first phase of the Philippine Revolution was ended by a truce between the two forces, wherein the Filipinos were led by Emilio Aguinaldo. He agreed to be exiled in Hong Kong while the Spaniards paid for the damages that they have caused, but the truce never lasted long as it was ended just a few months later before it collapsed. On May 28, Filipinos won their first victory in Arapan, Imus, where the newly made flag was hoisted. Emilio Aguinaldo declared the Philippines independent on the 12th of June, year 1898, on Kawit, Cavite, waving our very own flag of the Philippines. It is important to know how our national heroes fought for the independence of our country against the hands of the colonizers. If they didn't fight for our country, our very own identity will vanish, our very own culture, our very own land, and also our very own freedom, which we continue to battle up until now. Realizing the hardships of our fellow Filipinos before who battle against the foreigners of our land makes you appreciate the freedom, the liberty that we have right now, because if it's not for them, we won't experience this kind of liberty that we have now.
We must not forget the past because they made who you are now. You're experiencing this kind of living because of the past. Remember, this make you free now. Remember those heroes because you can go now to many places without consent. You can befriend whoever you want. You can now eat anything delicious, and now there will be no fear. You will not encounter a group of men carrying a long gun around your place every day. There will be no explosion. There will be no death. There will be no suffering. There will be no cry. There will be no anger. There will be mercy. There will be no worries. Because of the past, you're free now. But not only you, but also us, the Philippines and the world.
Hindi biro pinagdaanan ng ating inang bayan. The country is, was, still, and will ever be soaked with blood, tears, and sacrifices of our fellow Filipinos. We should take pride and be proud of our victories as those were amazing feats. Hindi natin dapat tinitake for granted ang ating bansa. Dahil once this is taken again from us, we will suffer tremendously. Saka lang natin malalaman ang halaga nito at sabi nga nila, nasa huli ang pagsisisi. Natutunan ko sa araling ito is to love my own country wholeheartedly. Love every aspect of it. Love every weaknesses and strengths of it. Ang inang bayan ay isang ina sa bawat Pilipino. Dito tayo lumaki, siyang nagbigay ng ating mga pangangailangan at higit sa lahat, minigit tayo ng identidad. Mahalin natin ang bansa dahil kung wala ito, wala din tayo. Let's raise our flags.
Raise your flag for the ones who think they can get somewhere. Raise your flag for the ones who think no one believes in them. Raise your flag for the ones who already feel like giving up. I stand here not as one, but we're all in this together. Reach high and raise your flag.